Thank you, Jamie. So if anybody, we're recording, does anybody have any objections to that recording? We want to be able to share this with folks. So if you do, please let us know in chat or just speak up and we'll address it however we need to. Okay, with that, we will get going. And Jamie, if you wouldn't mind monitoring the chat, that would be great.
Got it, thanks.
So a couple of housekeeping items here. We are having everybody muted. So I think I asked you, Caleb, hey, to talk, and then all of a sudden I realized that everybody's kind of muted. Anyways, everybody's muted except for the presenters. Please ask questions in the chat feature. So one of us will be monitoring that because we have this broken up into 3 different parts with 3 different presenters. And then we're recording this session and it'll be up on our website hopefully in a few weeks. And I believe, I was just thinking about this, we'll be doing a survey. So please give us some feedback. We want to really hopefully make this a good event continually if we have to. And I mean, we've had to this last 2 years. So we want to make sure things are going well. So welcome. And I'll introduce myself in the next slide. But so this presentation is really about the interview part. You saw like the job search. So Kennedy and Alex did her thing. They did their thing on the job search on Tuesday. Lauren and I forgot who the presenter was from the employer side, did theirs on resumes yesterday. And today we're doing this. Yeah, everything worked. Everything was great. So now you got the interview, and we're gonna kind of really talk about the remote interview, the virtual interview. But what we're talking about is really can go across an in-person and a remote interview. So without further ado, I am going to allow our presenters to introduce themselves. Oh, did that? There we go.
Hi, I'm Jamie Jensen. I'm a career success coach with Career Services at Boise State University. I've been at Boise State in multiple roles for a little bit over 20 years now. And I also have some degrees from Boise State in counseling and in psychology.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Danley. I'm with the Idaho Tax Commission. My position here is a tax audit manager. I've been at the Tax Commission for about 9 years. And like you, I graduated from Boise State. And when I graduated, it was during the Great Recession. So the job market was highly competitive. So I can understand the importance of having those good interview skills. And we're excited to share some strategies with you to help you prepare for interviews. I'll also give you some insight into what hiring managers are looking for, at least from my experience.
And I'm Alex Gutierrez. I'm the Senior Associate Director over at Career Services. And I've been at Boise State for going on 15 years. I am not a graduate of Boise State, but have gone through the interview process, and I'll also have been the hiring manager at Career Services and positions. When I used to also work at Micron. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be able to share what we know, and we'll get going.
Okay, so this presentation today is broken out into 4 topics: pre-interview preparation, the day of the interview success strategies, types of questions, and then at the end, we'll open it up for your questions. All right. So you'll want to make sure that you review and confirm both the time and time zone. Being late to an interview could be a deal breaker because it sets a bad tone for the entire interview. At the Tax Commission, if you are 15 minutes late, we actually can't interview you because we have other people behind you. So check that you have the right video conferencing application and make sure that it works. Make sure you know how to use the application. Practice with someone so you can ensure you can log in, hear, and be heard. And then also verify that you have the correct links. Okay. All right, have the right equipment and make sure it works. So check your camera and audio. And besides a computer, you might need a webcam, if your computer doesn't already have one, headphones, speakers, and a phone. And practice using your video conferencing application. You can do that with someone just to ensure that it's working. And then identify the place where you'll be doing the interview. So pick a place that's free from distractions. I recommend turning off your phone and watch if you have one. Okay. Now your background is something that can help you portray your image. You could have art, you could have books. And the main thing though is to make sure that it's clean and organized. Something that we recommend at the Tax Commission is that you don't use a pre-programmed background. And the reason for that is because if you move, you can have body parts cut off. And some of the background settings are just unprofessional. So also check the lighting. You don't want to have a window or a bright light behind you because it will wash out your face and employers want to see you. And then let people know that you'll be interviewing, especially your roommates, family, friends, but don't forget your pets because speaking from experience, I know that cats like to hijack meetings. And although they're cute, it's better to put them in another room. Okay, have a backup plan ready if technology fails, and we all know that technology can fail. So make sure you have your interviewer's phone number, email, just ahead of time. And also, if you have a laptop, make sure that you have access to a power source. Don't rely completely on the battery, because the worst thing is if you're in an interview and you're doing really well, middle and black screen of death. We don't want that to happen. Also, if you don't have a computer or a computer with video capability, see if you can borrow one. And if you can't borrow one, let the interviewer know ahead of time so that they'll be prepared and know what to expect. All right, the day of the interview is here. What can you do to help it go as smoothly as possible? Let's talk about attire. Think about what you're going to wear in advance. Avoid bright colors, wear colors that look good on camera. Avoid stripes or pattern prints. I didn't know this, but stripes can actually cause a distracting effect on the camera. So also research what employees in that field are wearing. If you don't know what they're wearing, see if you can contact someone. Maybe you know someone that's already working in that field. If you don't know someone, you can also go to the Career Center and they can help you. But when in doubt, just dress professionally. That's the best bet. Also, check what you look like in advance. Give your outfit a test run by testing your camera or calling a friend before the interview. Another important thing is, although it is tempting to just dress professionally on the top half, make sure you do dress professionally the whole body, because you may have to get up for whatever reason, and it wouldn't be good if you're in your pajama bottoms or sweatpants. Then I will say too, can we go back one slide? Appearance is important because at the Tax Commission, we have a rating sheet and we do judge or rate people on how they appear, and not if they're good looking or anything. It's more, are they professional? Because we want to make sure that they have a professional manner about them, because we meet with taxpayers and the public on a daily basis, and we need someone that would be a good representative or good representation of the Tax Commission. And then remind others that you are in an interview. I'm in a shared conference room right now and people love to pop in. So I put a note on the door that says interview in progress. So hopefully it will work. All right, so put a note on the door if you have to. And double check your camera and audio. I know that Zoom and other applications will allow you to test before you start the interview. So you can check your speakers, your video, make sure you can hear it. So I do recommend that. And then turn off your computer or phone notifications because the ringing can be heard through the microphone. Also, acknowledge unexpected background noises. And that's a good point because when you're interviewing remotely, you don't always have the control of keeping things silent. And so if, for example, your neighbor might be mowing their lawn, go ahead and acknowledge that noise. Say, I'm sorry for the noise, my neighbor's mowing his lawn. I think the interviewer would respect that. And then when you silence your phone, I also recommend that you turn it off because even the vibrations can go through the speakers. Communication, always important. So you want to speak clearly and at a slightly slower pace than normal, especially if you're nervous. And try to avoid talking over the interviewer as much as possible. All right, now for the small details. You want to set your camera at eye level to avoid looking up and down. You definitely want to look at the camera when you're talking. Some people will put a Post-it note or an arrow by their camera just to remind them where to look. And then be a reflective listener, nod, be engaging. Make sure you really listen to the interviewer and answer their questions completely. A lot of times they'll ask several questions, just one question for an interview question. So if you have to, write down what are they really asking me so you can come back to it. And it's always a good idea to say, did I answer all your questions? That's okay too. And then make sure your device is charged and plugged in. We talked about that already, especially if you have a laptop. Make sure it's connected to a power source. And close other applications that could slow down your computer speed, internet speed.
Okay, and I'm actually, since I'm controlling the slides, I'm trying to make sure I can actually control the slides there, and my cursor won't. There we go. Oh, almost had it. Yeah, here we go. Finally. Okay, so the interview strategies we're about to talk about are interview strategies that can be whether it's a remote interview or in person. So we really go into what we call like the 5 B's. And Jamie, would you mind adding in our interviewing handout, the pages for our website?
Yes, I will find that. Hold on.
When you do that, and we really, and this is a good overview of, and this is a high-end overview of just the interview process. But we want you, we want you to be successful. You need to be professional, and Rebecca talked a little bit about what that professionalism means and being prepared. Preparing, for the remote interview, obviously having your equipment ready and everything, but we'll go a little bit more into that. Being friendly is huge. We're hiring somebody we're hiring a person, right? And we need a person that that's going to add value to our organization. So being friendly and being engaged are going to be things that we're going to look at as a interviewer. How does that add to the team? And I say add to the team. And then at the end, being gracious and thanking people and thanking them for their time and all that. So let's talk a little bit about what that means to be prepared. And it's research. There's 2 components that I'm going to just suggest that you need to understand and know better than anybody else, and especially going into this interview. And first of all, the company. the company and the job. So what does the company have? So looking at the job description, it's probably be broken up into a variety of different areas. So one is going to be the job description, so detailing what the job entails, but it's also going to be talking about the requirements that are necessary, that they want, and maybe even some preferred qualifications that they're looking for. And then there's going to be maybe something on top that talks a little bit about the organization and company. Thinking about what, reading between the lines is going to be important. So if they're talking about communication and teamwork skills, thinking about what kind of leadership things that you have in your background. But don't stop just at the job description. Go look into the organization, the company. Most folks, if they don't have it, they should have a website. And look at what's important to them. Look at the new projects that they're working on, the initiatives. Think about what are their values and how do they, potentially, how do they value their employees? So those are things that you want to be able to be knowledgeable on as you're going through this interview. You can also go into like Indeed or Glassdoor. Lauren talked about that in the resume thing or maybe it was Kennedy talked about that in her job search piece, but that also gives you ratings on the company. And, it might give you some insight to how the company works and some of the culture, the company culture. Go into your network. And if you're just starting out, your network might not be huge, but you might have your faculty might know some folks. So thinking about Rebecca was out of the accounting department. Her faculty, she could talk to her faculty to ask questions about, tell me a little bit more about the tax commission. What do you know? And do you know any alumni that are there that I can ask some questions on? So that would be a great way to actually utilize your faculty, but start expanding your network. We have a thing called Bronco Link, which has alums in there. And with Bronco Link, you can connect with alums that are in the field, and maybe they know something about it. And then LinkedIn's another way to connect. Rebecca, I think you were going to maybe add something.
I was going to say I'd be happy to answer any questions about the tax commission.
And now you have another connection here. So if you're in accounting or you're thinking about the tax commission, you have a network, somebody that you can network with. So the second component, or another component there to actually know better, and actually you should know better than anybody else, is know about you. Know who you are. I will argue that the second to last question out there is why you? But when you tell, so Jamie's going to talk a little bit about questions that are going to be asked. But like for me, know why you are. Know why you're applying for the position. Know what value you are bringing to the organization and to this role. And you should know that better than anybody else. As you looked at the job description and what the company is doing, how does that match with your values? But think about, reflect back on all your experiences in and out of the classroom. Think about group projects, think about assignments, think about leadership roles you had on campus. All of those things are great that tell you a little bit about you. But at career services, we can help you go through that. A lot of times students will come into our, meet with one of our counselors and they'll say, oh, I don't have any experience. I like this position. I think I apply for, let us help you kind of reflect back and be able to tell your story. Then think about why them? Why do you want to work for them? We're actually in an interview, we're going through an interview right now at Boise State in career services. And we want to know somebody that's committed to us. We want to know somebody that when they apply to us, they really want to work for us. So find out what that is and express that. And then you can also utilize sticky notes to kind of remind yourself out there. If it's in person, I had a portfolio that I would write notes on, and I already had like notes ready to go on like questions I would ask at the end. So having that is good. So Jamie, there might be a chat question in there.
It's the link that I sent for the
Oh,
handout.
that's you. Never mind.
It's just me.
Just you. Okay. So at Career Services, we think of like, there's like, in an overall umbrella, we think of 3 buckets that are out there. We think about exploring. So at the beginning, and actually exploring can actually happen throughout your college career, but it's really thinking about what you want to do, why you want to do it, finding meaning and purpose, and thinking about your interests and values and all that. And then we want you to get experience, so the experience is the second bucket, and that we have experiential learning. We have, internships, WorkU, a variety of different programs out there, but you're gonna get experience. And so the last thing is articulate. And so it's basically connecting dots. And it's you connecting what you did and how that relates to my position. So when you're thinking about that, so think about like the things that you're doing inside the classroom, research projects, group projects, research that you did for a class, maybe something you worked on campus. So all of those things, you're gaining a lot of great skills. Your experiences are teaching you, even the failures are teaching you about who you are and how you bounce back. So those are some of the things that are out there. And then your knowledge. I may be hiring you for your disciplinary knowledge, but I also want to know that you can work on a team. I want to know that you can communicate well. I want to know that you can think critically through problems and actually maybe come up with a resolution and maybe change our organization for the better. When we hire, like when I hire for our career counselors, I'm not looking for somebody that I can fold into the rest of us. We're looking for people that actually raise the bar for all of us. So how do you help raise the bar? And again, you connect those dots.
Alex, I also want to say too that when we are asking questions to the interviewees, a common mistake that people make is that they will think that they have to answer those questions with tax-related answers. And like Alex was saying, think about what you've done in the classroom. Think of what you've done volunteer work, because we don't need answers to relate specifically to the job. We're looking at your performance in other areas. How did you succeed? And be prepared also, not only how you succeeded, but where did you fail and what did you learn from it? And what are you doing now?
Great, thank you, Rebecca. And this kind of leads right into this, is examples. So one of the things is, as we prepare students for Jamie's going to talk a little bit about questions, but like behavioral type questions and other things in there, think about, have stories ready to go, right? So think of reflecting back on your experiences and think about the skills that they want, the qualities, the qualifications they're looking for. Again, that job description is a great cheat sheet to help give you that. Read between the lines. But then you can think about the kinds of experiences you had, like professional experiences, like WorkU, internships, and even potentially, Rebecca and I and Jamie were talking as we were preparing for this, like the accounting students would go and reconcile all the art receipts or the receipts for art in the park, or would help with putting tax, helping folks that had financial need, helping with their taxes. I mean, that's volunteer. That's a great experience. So other volunteer experiences, you get volunteer experiences through your fraternity, sorority, your clubs, your organizations, or things that you just like to do. Service Saturday. I mean, what are you doing there to help the community? A lot of organizations now want to help, and that they see that you give something bigger to something to better the community. Right on. Think about service learning, class projects. Any extracurricular activity, clubs, organizations, what leadership role did you have, or what role did you, good leadership or fellowship? What did you help get done? How did you help this organization? How did you help the university? How did you help something in the community? All great things. Study abroad. I mean, you had to navigate a whole different culture, language, there's all sorts of things. Solve problems. All of a sudden, you lose your passport. How did you get get through that situation. All of those are great experiences that you have learned from. And then any kind of personal experiences that you have, like event planning or any of those things actually help. Did you want to add anything, Rebecca?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, so again, going back to just successful interviewing and being professional, being on time. You're Rebecca. Hey, it goes on. Actually, right after this, I'm participating in an interview for our office, and it's a 20-minute screening interview. It's what we need to get done. We're not going to have time to maybe get full answers if somebody's late. Smile, be friendly. Even if it's a phone call, I can hear your smile on the phone. So think about that, so smile on the phone. Pay attention to the question. And it's okay to ask. I think, Rebecca, you said this, it's okay to ask for clarification, to ask, I actually see that as confident. Like sometimes if you're uncut, like, I'm a little nervous and I don't know what they're asking, and I answer a completely different, or give them a completely different answer than was really what they're wanting. If you don't know, ask for clarification, ask to repeat the question. I think that's actually okay. Again, look, sitting up. Sometimes I tend to lean back when I'm in a Zoom meeting or whatever, but in an interview, make sure you have great posture, and in person, absolutely. You want to make sure your posture is great. Again, thanking interviewers afterwards, after the interview, thanking them for their time. And as we talk about noises, I hear birds in my yard. So if you hear those, that's that's something going on.
I did hear that.
They're kind of loud. And it was interesting because we used to have panels of employers come in and talk to different classes we used to teach. And some panelists would say, I love a handwritten note or whatever. Rebecca brought up a really great point. Sometimes that decision is made before a handwritten thank you note can ever get to them. So an email thank you note almost immediately. And it's just not, it is thanking them for their time, their consideration, and those things, but it's also an opportunity to close the deal in a way. Is to talk about, hey, after the interview, I really want to work for you guys. Or, I'm just paraphrasing here, but I really want, my interest in the company has really strengthened. I really loved this. And I know I can add value by, or be an asset through, whatever that is. You want to reiterate why you're thankful and how you still are a strong, valuable candidate. So.
And I'll point out too, you're going to say that in the thank you note, but you should have already said that in the interview as well. And a lot of times they're going to ask you, do you have any other comments to share? Do you have anything you want to share? That's a great time to start talking about what you can bring to the team if you haven't already expressed it, or if there's something else you want to add. Another tip is that you could ask to have the interview questions in writing. I know the Tax Commission does that. We'll put the interview questions in writing and have it in front of you. That helps when there's multiple questions. Like I said, more than one question in one interview question. So that way you can double check and just make sure you answered everything.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So now we'll talk about the different types of questions that you might encounter in your interviews. And I'll talk about a little bit about each of these types of questions, and then Rebecca will jump in and share some employer insight on each of these different slides that we have. So we'll talk about some of the common questions that you might encounter. We'll talk about some behavioral questions, what those are, what some examples are. Also talk about some scenario questions, again, defining that and looking at some examples. And we'll touch on stress questions, which aren't as common, but still might pop up here and there. So as we are looking at some of the common questions, these are ones that you may have encountered before and will likely encounter in the future. Tell me about yourself is a very common way to start off the interview. Why are you interested in this position? Why should we hire you? What are your strengths and weaknesses, your long and short-term goals, and some questions for us. And as you're responding to those, you don't want to tell like a full autobiography about yourself. You want to talk about how you're qualified for the job, how your experiences lead you to be a um, good candidate for that role. And so you can talk about some things that we mentioned earlier, some of your volunteer experiences, maybe some experience with teamwork, some projects that you've been involved with. You can talk about some of your accomplishments that you're proud of and how they relate to the position that you are applying for. Rebecca, did you have anything to add to this one?
I would. For me, I think the question, tell me about yourself, is the most important. I often find that people rush through that, but take the time, really think about that. And this is another good opportunity to tell what you have done that can relate to the job you're applying for. Another thing is when we ask, what are your long-term and short-term goals? We want to know that you want to be here and that you plan to be here for a while. I think Alex mentioned he wants someone that wants to be at Boise State and they're not just planning to leave.
Exactly.
Yes. So and the example that I used when we were talking about this is somebody said, "Oh, I've been trying to get into Boise State for a long time. This is a great foot in the door." And I'm like, okay, we're not going to be that stepping stone. So.
And unfortunately, I've seen that a lot on applications for Boise State. So yeah, that's a big mistake that happens commonly. All right, next slide. So on this next slide,
Sorry,
we're going to talk about.
It doesn't let me go to the next screen, and I'm like,
Oh, it's okay, we're good. Some of the common questions, so the formula, a way you can respond to those questions that we had on there. So a format that you can think about is talk about your main idea first. And as you're responding, you don't have to jump into a response immediately. You can take a few seconds, formulate a response that's coherent, that makes sense. So you're not stumbling and stammering and throwing a lot of, well, I don't know. And then having other ideas come as you're talking to supplement that. So just take a little bit, think about your response, have some things prepared, as we talked about earlier. Present that main idea first. What is it that you are wanting to portray as you're responding to that question? Is it something, are you talking about a specific strength that you have? Are you responding to tell me about yourself? What do you want them to know about you? Elaborate on that main idea. So present it, talk a little bit more about that. And then as you're elaborating and telling your story, support that with an example. So qualify it, give it some sort of a specific meaning, telling a story associated with that idea. That's always going to be more meaningful and more impactful as a response to the employer. Rebecca, did you have some insight for this one?
Sure. I would say for remote interviews, it's nice, but that you can have a piece of paper on the side with some bullet points. Alex had mentioned Post-its, but just some of the things you've done and some of the things that you want to make sure the interviewer knows about. But you can also do that in an in-person interview. You can bring a portfolio. You can bring a piece of paper. I just want to read off the paper, this is what I did, but just so you don't forget anything.
Sometimes you get in there and you get nervous, and then all the things that you thought about and had planned out just fly out of your head. So having a little reference.
I've done that.
Yeah, I think we all have done. I have multiple times. So it's helpful to have a little cheat sheet in a way. Like Rebecca said, you don't want to be reading off of it, but just little bullet points or ideas, not embedded with a lot of text, because that can really get difficult to manage while you're responding. So looking at behavioral questions, they're really designed to try and determine how you'll act in certain situations based on how you behaved in the past. And so these could be things where you're asked to tell a specific story or give an example about something. And you can talk about anything regarding conflict resolution, maybe some teamwork examples, problem solving, goal setting, time management, decision making. And this is where it's helpful to have a handful of stories that you can draw from as you're responding to these. And the questions might sound something like this. Tell me about a time when you encountered a problem, when you demonstrated leadership, when you were involved with teamwork. And these can be anything from previous employers, your school experience, personal experience, something that's relevant and relatable to the answer. So like we said, have a handful of scenarios available that could be used as responses to multiple behavioral questions that are presented. And also, like Rebecca said a little bit earlier, it's okay to throw, one or two, have some negative situations available, because employers might ask, how did this happen that you weren't expecting? Or tell us about a time when things didn't go your way, and how did you handle that situation?
Absolutely. I don't know if you guys saw this. Someone interrupted the presentation. So I'm like, no, don't. This note didn't work. So hopefully it'll work for you. But back to what you were saying, Jamie, yes, we usually ask one or two questions about when did you drop the ball? And what I'm looking for when I ask that question is to hear your thought process and what you learned from it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Great insight. And as you're responding, this is a handy way to respond as you're formulating that idea. It's called the STAR method, and it's really easy to remember the acronym there. So think about the situation, think about the task or the problem, the action associated with that, and the results that encountered with that. So an example might be, at my job at Home Depot, I had a customer the other day that needed a specific item. We were out of stock, and the customer was really frustrated. And so I looked up on our computer. I found that the store across town had it. The customer couldn't go pick that up, and so we were able to get it delivered to that store. The customer was really happy, and talked to my manager about what great customer service I provided. So that's like a really positive situation that happened. Maybe you have a situation that isn't positive, that has a different outcome. If you do that, you can also present that and also talk about how that went. What did you learn from that? And there are some industries, like Rebecca can probably talk about, where you have specific rules and laws that you have to follow. And maybe you aren't always going to be able to do what it takes to please the customer. Maybe you just need to give a response and work with the customer in the situation. Do you want to talk about that, Rebecca?
Exactly. You can think of the tax commission. It's not always warm and fuzzy. We do follow code and rules, and we can handle it in a different way. The taxpayer may not be thrilled or happy that they're getting audited, or they have a tax bill that they weren't expecting, but we should be giving them the customer service they deserve. And that's what we do aim and hopefully accomplish, is that we answer their questions, that we're there for them. The end result may not be a 100% satisfied customer, but they should at least say, they answered my questions. They were there for me. I knew what to expect, and the result is what I expected.
Exactly. So another type of question would be a scenario question, and these are hypothetical based questions designed to get an idea of how you might respond in a certain situation. These can be scenarios that are job related. They can be something that employers use to assess if you have the skills and can think through different processes to successfully do the job. So do some research to prepare for those, and how professionals are required to behave in certain jobs, what types of situations you might be involved with in the job. Look up what different responsibilities are for the job that you're applying for, so you can be prepared to respond to some questions that might involve that. And some employers, as Rebecca was talking about with us as we were preparing, don't really like scenario questions as much. They might prefer how you actually did behave. Can you expand on that, Rebecca?
Yes, the questions that we normally ask are, give us a time, or how would you describe a situation? We don't want a hypothetical answer when we specifically ask for an example.
Right. And so it's a great example of an employer with the tax commission that probably want to ask these, but you never know what someone could ask. So it's good to be prepared that these might happen in your interview.
I would also say, if you really don't know the answer and you don't have an example, you might want to say that. I don't have an example of this that's ever happened to me, but if I were in that situation, here's what I would do.
That's a great response. So our last type of question we're going to talk about are stress questions. And again, you might not encounter these, but they're really designed to test how well you perform under pressure. They're typically not related to the position. They could be something like, for example, your supervisor asks you to put together a presentation. What steps do you go through to handle that situation? Or some questions might be like, if you're an animal, what kind of animal would you be? Just things that are really designed to catch you off guard, see how you respond. So they might be problem solving, that might be brain teasers. And in our next slide, we're going to look at how to respond to those. So the employers are looking for your thought process. So as you're responding, think out loud, describe the steps that you would go to respond to these. So maybe you're asked, how many parking meters are there in downtown Boise? Well, I don't really know, but let's see, there's about, maybe 6 per block. And so knowing how many blocks there are downtown, I would estimate that there might be this many on a street. And just kind of walk through the steps that you would go through to come to that solution. There isn't an answer that we can really get to, but it's really designed to see how you might approach that unexpected situation that happens to you. But so yeah, just give your best effort. Don't give up, and respond in a way that makes sense, because you want to still put your best foot forward as you're responding to these. Rebecca, do you have any of these types of questions that you ask in the tax commission?
I can't think of any.
Okay.
I like the animal one. I might add that.
That's a favorite in career services.
So what now? So, we're giving you a lot of great advice. Or I think it's great advice. Rebecca thinks it's great advice. Jamie thinks it's great advice. But this is stuff that for us, this is what we live and breathe every day. This is, just being able to actually just navigate through that. So as we talk about appointments, we really talk about like getting you prepared, talking about a strategy, and then doing mock interviews. So let me make sure I can go to the next slide. So one of the things that we would have you, at least an option for you, and if you've gone to any of the other career launch week things, we've talked about being able to utilize career services. And so contact us, and we have a awesome virtual career center that has a lot of tools from like modules that are about 30 minutes each, and from everything from like maybe still exploring careers to preparing your applications, to the job search, to interviewing. And these are just, anytime you can, if it's midnight and you want to watch them, you can go through those. They're interactive, so that it allows you to really kind of think through this. We have virtual mock interview appointments available. So summer's a little bit of a slower time, so more availability. So take advantage of us. I mean, we're here for you. And our mission is student success. So take advantage of us. That's what we do. And if you have an interview and you're ready to go and you've done all these things, we can help you even test your system. So we can actually just go through and say, okay, yeah, that looks good. Let's look at your background. You might want to change this, whatever. We'll give you our best, opinion and advice to go forward. So you can contact us through a phone. We can schedule an appointment that way, or just go, basically, you can do it anytime, anywhere. Well, as long as you have a computer, anywhere, and just go to Boise State joinhandshake.com, or just go to our website, and our website has a lot of information for you. So that said, do you have any questions for us? Jetta.
Yeah, I can speak. So you said no bright colors. Can you hear me?
Yes. That was just a suggestion for the virtual interview. It's tested. If it looks good, if you have a friend that can test it with you, call them. I'm on the computer. Is this too bright? Then they'll tell you yes or no. It all matters about your video quality. You
Okay.
just don't want it to blur.
Okay. Thank you.
And Jamie, if you can monitor anybody else, because I can't see, because I have a presentation. Any other questions out there?
What are you the most afraid of?
I have a quick question. I wasn't, will the career centers be available during the summer portions as well, the summer months? Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Please, I have a question. So do you guys help students with resume reviews during the summer or only during the semester?
Can you repeat that? It was hard. It was kind of jumbled.
Oh, I said, does the career service help students with resume review during the summer?
I'm missing. I don't know if you're fading out.
I said, do you guys help students with resume reviews during the summer?
Yes. So all our services, right now, all our services are still virtual, but we help students with the job. I mean, a virtual appointment is an hour-long appointment, and we help with the job search. We help with writing your resume. We help with, and actually editing and doing that with your resume. We help you with the cover letter. We help you with any kind of just the interview prep and practice. So all of our services that we used to offer in person are offered virtually with a person through Zoom, and hopefully there's going to be a mixture of that in the fall. But this summer we're open all summer. Jamie, there might be some questions in the chat.
Mary just responded about the resume review, and then we don't have a question. Yeah.
I'm going to actually stop the share so that I can. So anything else?
Yes. Sorry. What do you do if you get nervous, even if you get the mock interview and things like that?
Who wants to answer that?
Are you saying? My screen, when you changed it, my picture's not there anymore. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I also, as you can probably tell, I'm a nervous person. And so what I do when I interview is before the interview, I do a prep talk. I listen to a song, something that will encourage me to do my best, and then slow it down. Try to just think of the situation that you're in. Take your time to answer that question and try to build a rapport with people. I think if you're, and that's hard on virtual, I know, but start talking to them. They'll probably try to break the ice too. And note this, that people that interview you are also a little bit nervous because it is a big decision that they have to make. That decision can be a long road ahead. I mean, if you hire the wrong person, and you could have years of problems. So the interviewer is nervous too. They want to make sure they have the right person. And we understand, because we've all been on the other side of the table, that it is a little nerve-wracking. And so just breathe, take your time, answer those questions.
Thank you.
And that's a normal that's a normal feeling of going in. And I have to tell you, for interviewing for the position I have, you know, it's 15 years ago, but it was more of a senior position. I was like shaking. I was shaking going in because it meant a lot. And that's the other thing. So know that I think that the interviewers will be gracious and understand, as Rebecca said, that we've all been through that and we understand that. And I think people, especially now, have been really gracious and showing face. But just know that, and I think that helps, you know, like you've had to do presentations and things in class, and you're maybe get nervous doing that. But the more you're prepared, the better you feel going into it. And that's the part what we're talking about. If you know the company, you know you, that at least takes that component out of it.
And a lot of times the anticipation of it is worse than the actual process of the interview itself. So once you get in there, you meet the people, you can breathe and know that it's okay. So just doing this, like Rebecca said, some preparation work, maybe taking some deep breaths, doing something you enjoy, listening to music, you know, making sure that you eat something, just as much as you can to be as calm going in, and even acknowledge it. Like start talking and your voice breaks. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous today. And that can break the ice too, because it's just being real and acknowledging what's going on in the moment.
Thank you so much for that question.
And I apologize, folks. I'm gonna have to leave. I'm gonna mute you, Jetta, just because I don't echo behind. I have to leave because I'm actually going to be interviewing somebody here for our office in the next 5 minutes. Anyways, so I'll leave Rebecca and Jamie in here, but I am going to leave. So thank you for attending, and hopefully this was helpful. Take advantage of us. We really want to help you. So please use us, use our website, use our folks. You're why we do what we do. So, and good luck.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for the presentation.
Of course. Any questions before we wrap up? We have a couple minutes left that we're available. Make sure everyone's questions get answered today.
Yeah, I want to make sure when I leave, it's good.